This is Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. Today we shall focus a little bit on the impossible, which is trying to solve the world's problems, but of course we're trying to approach it in a more academic way and in a more sustainable way, in a way where we want to explore ideas and argumentation that can be brought forth and perhaps be appreciated by the community. Such efforts actually currently being done by the University of Nottingham, Malaysia. They are in collaboration with the World Bank Group by creating the Nottingham-World Bank Economics Essay Competition 2021. So I have the pleasure to invite Dr. Teo Wing Leong, Head of Economics, Head of School of Economics at the University of Nottingham, Malaysia, as well as the competition winner, Gwendolyn Chan. Of course, Gwen is going to share with us some of the content of her essay that made her win this competition. But before we jump into that, let's get in touch with Dr. Teo. Let's talk a little bit more about the competition itself. Why did you guys create this competition? Why did you partner with World Bank Group?
Okay, thanks for having me here. So the School of Economics at the University of Nottingham, Malaysia, first introduced the economic essay competition in 2014. So this has been the 8th year that we run this competition. So we introduced the competition with the aim of encouraging high school and pre-university students in Malaysia to explore critical issues in economics and to explore their interest in economics as well. So this year is the first time that we partnered with the World Bank to organize this competition together. And we organized the competition with the World Bank because the World Bank obviously is a very prestigious institution. And it has a lot of expertise in the area of economic policy and economic development. So we hope that by partnering the World Bank, we can expand the reach of this competition further.
When I looked at the topic for this year's competition, it's actually quite daunting, especially if you're an undergraduate. What would be the economic consequences for Malaysia if technology replaces 50% of current jobs in the country? Who would benefit, who would lose, who would be better off ultimately? Dr. Teo, there are a million possible topics that you could choose, or you and World Bank could choose. Why did you guys land on this particular topic?
Okay, we selected this topic out of several possible topics. So we have an organizing committee. So we discussed over the different topics, and we decided to pick this topic because we feel that this topic is very timely, it's very interesting, and it's already important. And we would like to encourage high school students, pre-university students in Malaysia to explore this topic together, because obviously this topic will have important implications for the country's future and for everyone's life as well, and particularly for the young generation.
All right, let's get to the young generation then. So Gwen, tell us a little bit more about yourself. What are you studying? In what year are you at? And if you don't mind, your age, perhaps we can get a context into the kind of maturity that you exhibit in order for you to win this competition.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Gwendolyn Chan, but you can call me Gwen. Yeah, I'm 20 this year, and I just finished my STPM, and I'm actually getting my results later. Yeah, my overall results. Yeah, the results are out today.
Oh my God!
Yeah, so I'm getting it
all
there
the best
later.
to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
So I'm still apply for a few things and still waiting for replies from government universities as well. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. Yeah.
So when this was published, this competition was spread about. What made you interested to join this competition?
Personally, I take economics in Form 6. Yeah, so I'm taking economics, business. I'm in the art stream. Yeah, so I was like, I saw the topic, and I was like, wow, this is something that that's really interesting. It could be our future, you know. Yeah, and I was like, it would be interesting for me to write up about it and research about it, you know, like what would it be like in the context of Malaysia? Yeah.
Okay, so Dr. Teo, tell us more about Gwen's essay. Why did the educators select her essay to be the winner?
Okay, so the judging panel selected her out of an entry of 48 entries. And we felt that her essay in particular has a very good flow. And also she has skillfully integrated historical precedents of technological change, and also critically integrated some arguments about how technological change can affect the life of a society, and how, under what circumstance, it may lessen the impact of technological change on unemployment, etc. So overall, we think that grant essay is very well written, so she deserves the first prize.
Gwen, so let's go through your essay. What did you discuss in your writings? What will be some of the key highlights that you think is important for you to share with all of us today?
I would say like the unemployment, no, because it's 50 replacement of 50% of the workforce with technology, and I think it's important to acknowledge that it has happened before. It just happened in a different context, like when in the past it also happened, like people use technology not as advanced as us, of course. Like for example, like the gear, the inventions, these kind of inventions also put people out of work in the past. And it's important to acknowledge that it happened in the past, and it still will happen. It will still continue to happen. Yeah, so I think that's one of the points I highlighted on. And also about the social problems that will be created. But also on the flip side, there's also a really good potential for economic growth with the implementation of technology.
I think you touched on a very important point there, Gwen. Sometimes if you take the principle of it, if you take the root cause of it, it's the same, and it's just being replicated over and over again across the centuries. And the issue right now that is facing us is, of course, some jobs are already facing obsolescence. Dr. Teo, the principle that Gwen has exhibited is actually quite important, because you can do the same competition 50 years from now and 100 years from now, and if the student or if the youth of that time truly understands the root cause of it, they can still produce the same kind of arguments that is being produced today. Like, town criers, for instance. Nobody has town criers anymore, even though it was a big deal back in the UK, 200 years ago. But people don't miss that job anymore because it's no longer important, because it's replaced by, quite literally, the technology that we have today. Do you think that the idea of humanistic behavior, the principles behind it, is what drives the economy forward? What do you think on this?
Well, of course, technological improvement will involve the so-called creative destruction, whereby some jobs that can be replaced by technology will be replaced sooner or later. But I think importantly, as Gwen highlighted in her essay, usually new technology will happen gradually. It's not like one night. And because it happened gradually, and because once it happened, it will be adopted gradually, there will still be time for the society to react. And importantly, I think that in our modern days, one aspect differs from previously, which is that nowadays we have democratic society, and our government will have to answer to the people. So if you imagine that if technology replaces 50% of the job, and if those people cannot get a new job, of course people will not be happy. So I don't think this scenario to be likely to happen. So more likely, the government will be able to take some measures to help people to transition, or to slow down the adoption to a rate that they will be benefit us, but yet will not lead to like 50% of the people being unemployed.
Okay, of course, this is very important for us to discuss, in particular, some of the kind of jobs that will be replaced, some of the kind of jobs that will be still around. And if people Google, jobs that could be replaced by robots or by technology or by automation, there's a certain list. I'm very happy that radio announcers, TV announcers are very much up there in terms of being replaced, because it's clearly quite a stark reminder to me for me to continue on finding a greater value-added job. But at the same time, it's also a reminder that we might want to continuously reinvent how we do our current work. That's the main point of it. Maybe Gwen, can you tell us a little bit about what you think some of the jobs that could be replaced by technology, and some of the jobs that would probably stay? What do you think on this?
As I was researching on this topic, I found like a research in America, actually, It's about bank tellers and ATM machines. So basically, at that point of time, you know how bank tellers had to be in charge of all the deposits and all the withdrawals. It's all done by hand physically. And after that, when ATMs, the withdrawal machines were introduced, actually the bank teller, those jobs were replaced basically by the ATM machines. But at the end of the day, it became like a growth in the share market, and actually it created more jobs actually in the end. So how it did that was that it opened more they were able to open more branches, and thus creating more jobs, but also increasing the value of human interaction. That's where HR become more important in the bank industry. Yeah.
That's a very insightful view. Dr. Teo, would you like to expand on that? Because the inadvertent action of terminating one type of job may create other jobs. Some of them we might not even realize that is needed prior to this kind of switch. Do you feel that in the near future, in fact, because of the pandemic, because of how we do things, in fact, I mean, I'm doing this interview at home because of the restriction, and throughout the year I've been picking up a little bit of tricks and tips, getting the lights up, camera, everything. And what was interesting is that my teenage daughter is also quite good at it. Sometimes she's at it better than me. That kind of transition, right? That jobs can be created because of the adaptation of us trying to do other stuff in order to fit the requirements and demands of the times. That's very important for us to discuss. But yeah, Gwen touched on a very important point. In her research, she shows that some jobs may be terminated, but in the end, it might create other types of forms of other jobs. What would be some of your ideas on this?
Well, I guess that is precisely the idea of creative destruction, in the sense that jobs that are obsolete, the people who are working in jobs that are obsolete that can be replaced by technology, they will lose their job, but then they can be freed out to be employed somewhere else. Now, you can imagine that someone who loses their job, they will have to find whatever way possible to earn a living, and so they will have to adapt. So that will become a very strong incentive for them to adapt to the new environment. Now, it may sound to be cruel, but I guess if we don't have the scenario of like mass unemployment at the same time, but gradually it's like a fraction of the population facing the unemployment, but they are free out to pursue another jobs, that will be good for the society. But again, maybe with some help from the government during transition period, with some help on training and education, etc.
Okay, we'll go for one short break. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more about the Nottingham-World Bank Economics Essay Competition. Welcome back. I have with me Dr. Teo Wing Leong, Head of the School of Economics at the University of Nottingham, Malaysia, and also Gwen Chan, of the winner of the Nottingham World Bank Essay Competition. Gwen, I'm sorry, I just have to focus on you a little bit more, because it's very important for us to speak to the youth right now. You're seeing the kind of events that are currently unfolding, not just in this country, but around the world. This is a tipping point where we are at a situation where we can actually affect change. We can actually change the future for the better, or we can just continue with our old ways and face the same problems. Global warming is real. KL is never hotter than before. Crops are not growing as fast as possible. My dad is a farmer. He has a little kebun on the side. He's complaining. Nothing is growing. Things are out of whack. Those are one item that we can think about. But of course, now we're using technology a lot and everything else. Where do you see yourself? How do you want to affect change in your community? Maybe 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. Where do you want to study? What do you want to study? Now that hopefully your STPM results are going to be just fine. But honestly, what's your future? What does the future hold, in your opinion?
I think I want to be someone that is able to, not to say change the whole society, but if I can change, like help to change one person's life, I think that would be really meaningful for me. Yeah. So
Do you
yeah.
do you have any ideas on what you plan to study? Is it still economics?
Uh,
Or are you
um,
going to offend Dr. Teo, because the moment you say non-economics, Dr. Teo is going to revoke your.
no, I have thought of studying economics, but I think it's not for me in the long run, lah. Yeah. I have applied for a few things. I applied for law actually, yeah, and I'm still waiting to hear from them. And also, um, I applied for something completely on the flip side. Actually, it's education. Yeah, to be able to change, to be able to impact the younger generation like behind me. Yeah.
Okay. Just when I thought you were offending Dr. Teo, not taking economics, when you say education, suddenly I see Dr. Teo like, okay, it's still okay.
Sorry,
Dr.
Dr. Teo.
uh, the message that you want to share with the youth, not just of those watching this show, but just generally the youth of Malaysia, what would be some of the messages that you want to share with them?
For the youth, they need to stand ready to embrace change. But I think youth nowadays, they're always ready to face change. It's just a matter of knowing that technology will be part of our life, but instead of just using the technology, think about how it can help them to increase their value. I think there are many ways that youth can use the technology to increase their value in the job market. Like what we discussed, jobs that are mundane will likely to be replaced by technology, but there will always be some creative way of making use of technology to reach more people, to affect change. So, and nowadays with the internet being so convenient, everyone can search about different ways for which they can get involved using the technology to do great things.
One thing that I, before we end this particular interview, I just want to share with you guys my feeling of what the future holds. I think that while technology may replace jobs, some jobs, the core value of us being empathetic, being understanding, the ability for us to connect with another human is actually quite critical. Gwen, if you're going to education, I think it's also important for us to think about how humans, daily teachers, for instance, use technology to affect change. I see my children sitting through the online school, or PDPR as they call it. While technology enables that, it's the quality of the teachers that ensure that the children continue to remain focused. It's not that easy, particularly if you're miles apart.
Yeah.
And the child is not focused or being focused, too much focus on iPad for the past 4 or 5 hours, and then suddenly on the 5th hour you have that class. Not easy. And I think that human touch, that empathetic, the ability for us to communicate is actually quite critical. So yes, Gwen, I hope and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And Dr. Teo, perhaps you can have this winner of the competition for 2022, hopefully next year. Hopefully the pandemic is done by then. Thank you both. That was Dr. Teo Wing Leong, the head of School of Economics at the University of Nottingham, Malaysia, as well as Gwendolyn Chan, the winner of that particular essay competition. If you've missed any part of the show, just head on to Astro AWANI, look for Nottingham-World Bank. We'll be right back after these messages. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more about cerebral dynamic and EPF. Welcome back. This is Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. There's a lot of ongoings right now when it comes to corporate Malaysia. Things like IPO seems to be in the season. The biggest IPO right now is, of course, CITOS. The credit bureau agency, they have just launched their prospectus to go for an IPO 3 weeks from now. They want to raise over 2 billion ringgit, of which 990 million ringgit or thereof is for the shareholders. They want to resolve or manage their gearing ratio by paying off their debts. They want to think about how they can finance new businesses, new pillars. There's a lot of things that can be said about CITOS, and it's backed by Credor, the PE firm that also backed Mr. DIY. You know, when Mr. DIY listed last year, it was a rather phenomenal listing because for a business that is very much retail based and a pandemic that is hitting the rest of the country, it's not that easy trying to grow that kind of business. But over the past few months that have been listing Mr. DIY, it has garnered significant growth to a point where it's not included in the KLCI. Will the same be said about CTOS? They are indeed backed by the same private equity firm, Credor, but they do have two distinct kind of businesses. So a lot has been said about how Credor is affecting the kind of market sentiment and appetite for potential investors to jump in on the bandwagon and take up stocks during the IPO for CTOS. But at the same time, it's also important for us to understand the longevity of the credit bureau business and whether or not this has the kind of growth that the company is touting it for. So you can find out more on that IPO from my interview of the CTOS CEO yesterday that I did. Just Google CTOS on astroawani.com. But the bigger news that I want to share with you today is, of course, the current ongoings of Cyberdynamic, because EPF ceased to be their largest shareholder in Cyberdynamic. And of course, Karim is now forced to trim their stake. And this is because EPF sold 96 million shares, or 2.57%, on June 25th. And the shares were sold in the open market. And of course, this has pushed the price even lower when it comes to the share price of Cyberdynamic. We are also expecting Cyberdynamic to continue on with their media coverage on how they are pretty much upset with KPMG. But because this is a court matter, and KPMG is now no longer issuing statements regarding this matter, so we do expect it to be a very interesting court battle between these two organizations. Subsequently, EY, of course, has accepted to be the independent reviewer of the current ongoings inside Cyberdynamic. But if you pay close attention to what EY has agreed to, there's a lot of caveats that were imposed, and EY is not going to take this matter quite lightly. In fact, EY is going to be going through the audit issues that was raised by KPMG in a very serious matter. So now the corporate governance of Cyberdynamic is going to be put through a test, and the independent directors have to stand up to the kind of corporate governance that is required out of the independent directors to execute their fiduciary duties and impose very strong governance inside any company, and more so now in Cyberdynamic. The newly appointed chair of Cyberdynamic is an independent director, and of course two new other independent directors are also appointed very recently, so they need to rise to the fore on that one. So there's a lot of things that are currently happening. IOI, for instance, that is being investigated, that needs to be understood. That issue still needs to be resolved very fairly quickly. ESG as a main topic for many of Malaysian exporters are also a big deal. And if companies do not pay attention to ESG, particularly the S and G aspect, which means the social and governance aspect, the chicken will come to roost, and therefore it's important for us to understand all these matters very, very deeply. So those are the kind of ideas that are currently happening in the world of corporate Malaysia, and I want you to share your views on what you think about the ongoings of the nation, particularly when it comes to the business of the country. Just use the hashtag AWANI News, or you can tag me at Ibrahim Sani on all my social sites. Until then, that's it for this show. See you in the next one.